Good morning, YouTube friends and family. So, Detroit, I believe I had someone asking me for the Motor City. Let's check it out. Right now we're set up for a 53-foot trailer provided, what everyone refers to as power only. There's 67 results. It's kind of low, I think, but maybe that market's not as big as I thought. So, right off the bat, we have $3 a mile for 258 miles. That's not too bad. I mean, it doesn't hit my daily goal for, 1,000 a day, but it's not a bad rate. Then we have 605 miles at $3 a mile, 1,800 bucks. That's a good day's work right there. There's another one for the same price, more or less. You got 551 at $3 a mile, Teams load. There's 295 for Teams, 306 for Teams. There's a 95-mile load for 265. Keep in mind the weather has changed some of these rates. It's a supply and demand thing. I know Chicago got hit pretty good with weather also. I mean, when we talk about cities like that, I know you guys are used to it and you think it's a storm like any other. The thing of it is, these last couple weeks, these storms have hit markets that aren't used to it. And so you get trucks that leave your area that are supposed to come back, but now they're stuck. And so that creates an artificial shortage of trucks. Nonetheless, it's beneficial to your market. So there's another Teams load at 248. There's a $2 a mile load for 970 on the miles. That's a tour, actually. There's 238. There's $2 a mile for a 366-mile tour. There's a $1.98 for a 980-mile tour. It'll take you 2 days to finish that. The per mile rate, I think, is a little low, but you make almost 2,000 bucks in 2 days. That kind of hits my personal target. I'd do that. I wouldn't have an issue doing that one. There's 261 per mile. The mileage is good, but if you look at the time here at the top, it's going to take you all of 8 hours to do that for 300 bucks. That's pretty cheap. And so here we have 268 miles. It's going to take you all day to do this one as well. It's just under $2 a mile. I just don't think 500 bucks for a day's worth of work, including a truck, is worth it. So here we have a Teams tour, really cheap, $1.35 a mile. I don't really know why they do that. I don't know why they expect someone to work for that. And even more so, I don't know why people take those. So there's 222 a mile. That load will tie you up all day for 580 bucks. I'm not really sure how you guys operate. I don't mean you guys like you, the viewer, but the people that are taking these loads. There's a team load, 204 per mile. It's 2,300 miles in 2 days and 3 hours. That's kind of a toss-up. You do really well per day. You're doing just over 2,000 bucks a day. That's probably the lowest I would take a team load for. But there's enough miles on it where the drivers will be happy. You will generate some revenue. Um, but with the way today's market is, honestly, even Amazon has better paying team loads. So there's another 203 a mile. There's a $1.90 a mile, 151, 190. Quite a bit of team loads leaving there. I think what Amazon's doing right now is they're trying to get team loads to make up some time instead of the truck stopping to do its reset. I think with all the trucks that got stopped and some of the locations being closed, I think they're putting team loads on stuff that they ordinarily wouldn't, just for the sake of getting stocked up. More people sitting at home with no heat and no power and everything else. You know, a lot of people, I'm sure, went to Amazon and tried to order something that would make heat without needing power, whether it's, you know, a propane powered heater, that kind of stuff. And so I'm sure Amazon's feeling the pinch. So here's some blocks. A lot of markets are doing these now. If you're not familiar with them, the one here at the top where it says 1 day, 13 hours, basically that's what they call a solo 2. You work a 13-hour shift, you're off for 10 hours, and then you work another 13-hour shift. So it's kind of like a 2-day, it's a 2-day schedule. They send you wherever they want, as long as they get you back to the same location by the end of the block. They're going to pay you $17.25 for both days, plus accessorials, which ends up being fuel surcharge and tolls. So if you have tolls in your area and they send you through a toll road, you know, they'll add that to this block. If depending on the actual miles, they'll compensate some fuel surcharge. Honestly, I've not figured out what percentage or how their formula works, but this load will probably be right at about the $2,000 mark for 2 days. It just depends on how hard they run you. And the problem is, you book these kind of a shot in the dark. You could get a really easy solo 2, or you could get a really cruddy one, but you won't know until about 12 hours before the start time. They'll end up putting it in your application and sending you an email. And so they have a handful of blocks here, and these are all Monday. So even if we see regular loads for Monday, they're going to be cheaper just because they're still a few days out. They have quite a few blocks. And so let's jump back up to the top and we'll take a look at box truck activity. I get a lot of requests for that. A lot of people have curiosity getting into it, and this shows done. Let me remove the provided, because they don't provide you anything on the box trucks. So there's 62 box truck loads, which is pretty healthy. And so $229 a mile for 182 miles, $400. There's 148 miles at $199 per mile. There's 116 miles at $221 per mile. There's 137 miles at $224. You know, these miles, when you're up in the $2 range and better, you're kind of doing better than what a big rig does. But you have to remember, you still got to come home. So if they send you from wherever the domicile location is, if they send you on a 170-mile trip, that's not including the miles you drove deadhead to start the load. And then once you finish the load, you still got to get back. And so if you can't find something back on a load board, you're coming back empty. And so now you probably cut that 211, you cut that in half. So you're really making like $1.05 per mile. So that's the math you need to do for guys that are thinking about buying a truck and making a business out of it. That's the math you need to do, plus driver compensation. How are you going to pay your driver? If you're going to drive the truck, then whatever's left over is yours. But if you're going to put a driver in it, you're going to have to figure out how to compensate him in a way, or her, in a way that will, for that 287, you're going to lose like 5 hours out of your day. How much is going to be for the driver? How much is going to be for the truck? And how much is going to come back to you, the owner, for your investment? Anyway, so there's 159 miles at $1.84. There's 203 a mile. There's 198 a mile, 169, 187, 216. So far, it kind of seems like the Jersey market has the best rate per mile. There's 210 a mile. There's 202 a mile, 182, 269, 174, and these are out into Tuesday now. There's 140, 183. I've not watched the box truck market close enough to realize if, as the load gets closer to its ship date and no one takes it, does the rate go up? I've not paid that close attention to it, so I couldn't say for sure. But these being now into Tuesday, if these were regular semi-truck loads, I would say come Monday they'd be higher. But I don't know these that well. There's $1.40 a mile. 165 a mile. I did hear or read on a Facebook group that, because I had the idea, can you combine these loads and put multiples? And I read on a group that no, you can't. That you end up with like 6 to 8 pallets on these loads, and although they're not heavy, they take up the majority of the truck, and you can't typically fit 2 loads into the same route. In other words, if you've got 2 loads that are heading to the same area and they're within 20 miles, my original thought was, well, if there's just a couple pallets apiece, you could easily book 2 or 3 of them together and combine it all. But I've read that you can't do that each one is pretty close to being a full load. So there's $1.74 a mile, $1.80 a mile. See, like here, my thought was how you have multiples going the same way, but these are all going to the same exact location. And so my opinion, what's going to happen here is each one's going to be full, like the full 26-foot truck. Anyway, so these are getting into Thursday. That should give you an idea of what's in your market. Hopefully these Thursday loads go up a little bit on price. And that's the Detroit market, guys. As always, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get caught up on some of these requests.